Hi, this is Brian from turfmechanic.com. You're probably watching this video because you're thinking about starting some kale from seed indoors. Behind me you'll see my garden. Right now it is very early spring and this is a cold, high elevation climate. So in mid-April I don't have much growing in there except for cold, hardy vegetables. Kale is one of the staples of the garden around here because it can go all the way down to about 10 degrees. I tend to cover it if it gets really cold, but if it gets down close to 10 degrees, 20 degrees, it should be fine, especially if it's well established. Starting seed, however, will be hard in cold weather. For me, this season, I grabbed some kale seed and started it inside my garage because kale, although it will survive in the 20 degree range, it won't germinate very well. Germination rates for kale are best in the 45 to 75 degree vicinity. Best germination rates are probably 60 to 65 degrees. Through the winter, we heat the garage because the dogs stay in there, and temperature gauge in there, and it's about 60 degrees, about 58, depending on how cold it is, up to about 65 as springtime comes. Temperature is perfect for germination in the garage at about 60 degrees. So I'll show you some pictures here on the screen while I talk. But I started the seed in seed starting mix, just an over-the-counter seed starting mix. Sometimes I make my own. This time I didn't. And stuck it in little happy birthday cups, just some leftover paper cups from my kid's birthday party. And the first kale seed germinated in 5 days. I should say I covered the cups with saran wrap so that the moisture would stay in. That way I didn't have to keep disturbing the soil with new water every day or so. Seed starting mix tends to hold the moisture pretty well anyway, but the saran wrap really helped. In 5 days my first sprout popped up, and 5 days later all of my sprouts had pretty much come up. And these were old seeds. I mean, these were like 7-year-old seeds. So I guess if you take care of your seeds, they can last a good long time. Let me enter the garden here. After about 8 days after I sowed the seeds in the garage, most of the sprouts had come up. A couple others, stragglers, came up afterwards. But I started bringing them outside because, as I said before, kale will survive and thrive in cold weather. Not just frosty weather, but really cold weather. Here I live in Klamath Falls, Oregon. Elevation is a little over 4,000 feet. It gets cold at night for a long time into the spring. Right now we're in mid-April and it's still getting down into the low 30s overnight. But kale is really good all the way down to 10 degrees. So I would bring the kale sprouts out in the morning when it was cold so that they could get some sun. So the sprouts still need some sun once they come up. They can live in the garage for a while, but eventually they'll start suffering. Even if they've got nutrients in there, they just need sun. Plants need sun. So I'd bring them out and give them water. Of course, I removed the saran wrap and let them grow a little bit. They do grow slow, but, you know, reliably fast enough. So I'll throw some other pictures on here with date stamps on how they're growing. Basically, I just continued giving them some water, kept them outside during the day, brought them back into the garage at night. Certainly they would stay alive at night. I mean, I think over the past 4 weeks, the lowest temperature it got overnight was about 17 degrees. I just didn't want to chance it with a seedling. I don't want to stress it out. So the garage stayed at a nice, 60 degrees for the whole month. Over the past week, as I'm recording this, it was literally 28 days ago, 4 weeks exactly, when I sowed those seeds. And now I've got all of them out in the garden. Every single one of them I've transplanted over the past few days. A couple of the sprouts are like miniature size. I think they were seeds that I put in the cups that I didn't even realize were there. They came up really, really a long time after I stopped attempting to germinate seed. So, but I put them all out here in the garden anyway, and let me show you what they look like. They're tiny little guys. Here, let me move to the other side so the shadow's not in the way. over here, this is arugula. I guess that's another video. But here is a good one. This is mulched with thatch from my lawn. Dead grass that I've pulled out of the lawn. You can see this leaf right here is still one of the first germination leaves to pop up. And then we've got the first main leaves. Those leaves started coming up, some around early April, some around like the 3rd or 4th of April. So it took from germination, if we called germination somewhere around March 25th, it took another 8 days or so for the first main leaves to start growing. And right now, the first main leaves are finally a little bit bigger than the baby leaves, the sprouts. So, and then deep down inside there, we've got the next set of true leaves coming up too. So this plant is obviously very, very small. And I could look at all of the others. They're all the same. But if you're growing from seed, this is a pretty good expectation to have. This is seed in soil 28 days ago. And after about 22 days in the garage, I finally moved it out to the garden and put it in the ground. Every single one of them has taken nicely. There's a miniature one right there. Here's another one. This one I think is the biggest one of them all. But I'm going to follow up with this video down the road and show you how they're growing here in the garden and what rotations you should have if you decide to start kale from seed inside the house or the garage. Eventually you got to move them outside, or at least put them into a nice big pot. So that's part of the process. Here are my cats here now. Here's one of my cats. There he is. He's gonna destroy all the plants if I let him, as a litter box. Definitely try kale. This thing has been very, very hands-off for me. I haven't had to worry at all about the plants dying because of cold, and they all germinated very, very easily inside the house. Transplanted very, very nice without any problems. I think if you give it a try, you'll have success too.